Are you always struggling to hit the chord tones in your solos? You work hard to outline every change, but the results still sound stiff and mechanical? But here's the truth. You don't have to chase every chord change to sound like jazz. In fact, the more you focus on chords, the less your solos flow. Instead, there are 3 simple shifts you can make that'll free you from chasing chord changes, and so you can finally start sounding like the player you want to be. Dr. George here, making jazz simple so that you can play more and think less. In this video, I'll show you how to break free from stiff, boxy solos and finally make your lines flow. You'll discover how to sound more expressive, more confident, and more like real jazz without getting trapped chasing every chord tone. So one of the most common pieces of advice is play chord tones. And sure, the chord tones are stable. They define the harmony. And if you play them, you'll be making the changes. But if you stop there, it's kind of like painting in black and white. There's no color, no tension, and it quickly becomes predictable. And as composer Jim McNeely said, when you stop asking what's going to happen next, the only question left is when's it going to end? In the swing era, players leaned on triads. Bebop expanded the language. All the chords were 7th chords, and then adding the upper partials, the 9th, the 11th, and 13th, well, that's all 7 notes of the scale. So if they're all chord tones, the real question isn't if it's right or wrong, it's which one to use and why. On most chords, you can resolve to almost any note in the scale, but each creates a different effect. The root and the 5th feel like home. The 3rd and the 7th will define the chord, and the 6th adds a little depth. And then tensions add color and surprise. So it's not about correction, it's about hearing resolution. And that's where your personal voice develops. So here's an exercise for you. Play a chord, and then play lines that resolve to each scale degree. Don't forget to use altered tones on dominant chords. Now notice how each one feels. Which notes sound like home, which add color, which create motion. And that's how you train your ear to hear resolution instead of just memorizing patterns. If you try this, drop a comment and let me know which notes felt the most natural to you. So now that you know that you can resolve to just about any note in the scale, here's the second shift. Not all chords are equal. Some chords are functional. They're the goal of the progression. They define the key center and feel like you've arrived. These may be at a change of function, like moving from tonic to subdominant, and at the end of phrases. The other chords are auxiliary chords. They provide some motion within a function or connect to the next structural chord, but they don't really require that you resolve to them. If you're chasing chord tones, you'll try to resolve the 3rd and 7th. Those are the guide tones. But you don't need to do that. In fact, it becomes kind of predictable and boring. On songs like Autumn Leaves or All the Things You Are, the guide tones are the melody. So rather than play them all, play melodies and focus on the main resolutions like 5, 7 to 1. Sometimes chords are just there to create some motion. A great example is rhythm changes. The first 4 bars is a cycle, 1-6-2-5, 1-6-2-5. It doesn't go anywhere, it just provides some motion around the tonic. Most players just ignore it and treat it like 4 bars of 1. You can treat the first 4 bars of the blues that way too. 2-5s are often used in a similar way. In Black Orpheus, the first 4 bars are 1 chord followed by a 2-5 played twice. Now these are auxiliary 2-5s. They don't really have a function, and they don't always need to be outlined when you're soloing. In general, when a 2-5 occurs, you can ignore one of the chords. Joe Pass would think 5, while Pat Martino only focused on the 2. One thing that can be confusing is that the same chord can be either functional or an auxiliary chord. It all depends on how it's used. In All of Me, the 2 chord in measure 8 is clearly functional, but the same chord in measure 15 is much less important. Now this all may sound complicated, but in fact it makes it so that you can think less and use your ear to guide you. Trying to play the right notes doesn't work. The real right notes are the ones that your ear tells you to play. And that's exactly what I help adult guitarists do. Get past the theory overload and connect with your ears and enjoy playing jazz again. If that sounds like what you need, book a free lesson with me. The link is down below. This last one is a bit of a secret. The line is more important than the chords. There's an old joke: to play jazz, just play all the wrong notes. And like all good jokes, there's an element of truth to that. When you obsess over chord tones, your lines suffer, but strong flowing lines, even with so-called wrong notes, sound musical if they resolve eventually. Consider the famous Coltrane pattern played over one chord. These notes can't work, but they do. And it all comes down to the strength of your lines and your ideas. So here's the solution. Instead of chasing every chord, think in key centers and play melodies. That's what Miles was trying to teach us in Kind of Blue. And that's how you stop sounding boxy and start letting your lines flow to natural points of resolution. You'll resolve at functional points and let the rest pass by, and resolve to whatever note creates the effect you want. That's what gives your solos freedom. So now when you listen to modern players, notice that they rarely just run the changes. What you hear far more often are lines flowing through key centers, rhythmic variation, motivic development, and chromatic approaches. So while there certainly hits some chord changes, they'll blow right through a lot of them too. So in this video, we're mainly talking about diatonic chords. But what about chords that aren't in the key? It's a little different for them. For that, check out this video.